Men, 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 manly men, men, men. Ooh. Men, 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 manly men. Ooh, boo, 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 doo. Men, 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 manly men, men, men. Men, 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 manly men, men, men. Men, 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 manly men, men, men. Men. At least I wish that's the men I was talking about, or at least I wish that was the concept of the show. I wish I was. I don't know. I wish I was talking about any other men, but this one, honestly, and that's not to say this is a bad movie, but this is a complete what the fuck. A24's Men. Hey guys, it's your guy in the chair here, and this is my review for A24's Men, which stars Jessie Buckley, Rory Kinnear, Papa Isidou, Gail Rankin. It was directed by Alex Garland, who also directed the famous films, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know how many people have really watched this, but Ex Machina, that came out in like 2014 with Oscar Isaac and Alicia Vikander, and he also directed Annihilation with Natalie Portman and Tessa Thompson. And here we go again with another one of his strangely over the top, just wild, very wild movies. And granted, this movie he takes a lot more risks than he does, with his previous ones. But first, let me talk about the plot, of course. So our plot follows a woman after the tragic death of her husband. She moves out to the countryside for about 2 weeks just to clear her head and, give herself peace after the tragic events that happened. And while she's there, not only are we, going through the tragic events that led to her husband's death, but we are also introduced to this brand new nightmare of hers that is forming while she's staying out in the countryside. Essentially, it's a man, but I can't really go too much into depth about, what I think, the man is, what it represents and all that stuff. This is one of those movies where, you're definitely going to have to watch an ending explained, or you're definitely going to have at least like a bunch of theories at the end of this, because it could be depicted in so many different ways. It could be picked apart in just a lot of different ways, and that's a lot of that's what Alex Garland does. Ex Machina, for example, is definitely one of those movies. I feel like what he did with this one is he combined like the intelligence or the thought provoking process of Ex Machina, and he combined it with A24 style of horror and just creepiness and very stylistic horror in a way, and just horrific imagery. This movie is terrifying when it comes to some of the imagery that they show. And honestly, I enjoyed this movie a lot. I think this movie is very good. I'm going to explain why in just a second. But I really think that this movie is not for everybody. I'm going to say that straight out. I just don't think, everybody's going to appreciate what this movie is. And I think for a lot of people, if you don't necessarily, I would say this. In order to watch this movie, you definitely have to at least see one of the other two Alex Garland movies, which is Annihilation or Ex Machina, and then you got to know A24's style. If you're comfortable with all that, then you are going to be very surprised at what you see, because like I said, this movie is a complete what the fuck. But you will at least understand where they're coming from with all this stuff. Because if you're just like the avid moviegoer, like if you don't go that much, if you're just like a casual moviegoer, this movie's gonna completely throw you off, and you're probably not gonna enjoy it as much as like somebody like me or an actual like A24 appreciator would. But it's just a lot. It's a lot to break down in this movie. But let me get to what I liked about the movie. So as far as what I liked about the movie, I'm going to start with the phenomenal performances from Jessie Buckley and Rory Kinnear. Rory Kinnear especially, I hope I'm saying his last name right, but I'm going to start with Jessie Buckley. First of all, she does such a phenomenal job in this movie. She captures traumatic elements very well. She does a very good job of being terrified throughout the movie. She's capturing very different emotions throughout the movie, like trying to be terrified. She's trying to contemplate with, or she's trying to essentially, come to peace with what happened with her husband. And as we are following her throughout this journey, it's only getting harder for her to do that. And she just does a phenomenal job throughout the movie. But the obvious star of this whole thing is Rory Kinnear. First of all, he plays every single male character in this movie except for her husband, of course. And the most impressive thing to me about that is the way he goes about it, because each character has like little things different about themselves. Not that like it's still his facial structure, but he does something different to make it like a whole different character, or at least he does something to make it different from the character he's played before. Like with the main character or the landlord who runs the building that she's staying in, he does this thing with his teeth where he has his teeth sticking out, but then he'll play like the priest or something like that. Or they even like CGI'd his face on this little boy, and essentially he'll make a certain face to be different from the others. And I was completely just floored by his performance. I thought he was absolutely incredible. I think he should be nominated for this performance because it's one of the best performances of the year. I have never seen someone be so creepy yet so effective in like the way he did in this movie. Like he made everybody was creepy. Every single character he played had this weird just trait about them. You couldn't really put your finger on it, what was wrong. Now, granted, like I said, I can't go into detail about what I think like this monster per se, or what this man in the movie is really supposed to be. I don't necessarily want to get into that because that goes into the my whole theory thing or the ending explained. You really should watch one of those for it, because I'm not even 100% sure if I got everything that this movie was trying to give me. I definitely probably need to see it a few more times, but as far as my first viewing, this movie was absolutely phenomenal, and the performances are hands down some of the best I've seen so far in 2022. Another thing I thought was an absolute standout from this movie was the directing of Alex Garland. Alex Garland is a very talented director, and he does such a good job in this movie, not only capturing like very captivating imagery in the movie, which A24 tries to do a lot. Examples like Midsummer, Hereditary, they try to capture like certain images. He does a very good job of trying to encapsulate that in this movie. He also does a very good job of just making the most horrific images you are probably going to see this year. Now when I saw the trailer for this movie, of course I was expecting this to be horror. I was expecting this to be very uncomfortable at some times for me to watch, but I couldn't even I didn't even come close to what I actually was watching on screen. And Alex Garland just does a great job of not only setting a creepy tone throughout the movie, but he makes sure that the performers are giving absolutely believable performances, because everything, in order for this movie to actually hit you where it needs to hit you, you got to feel what these people are feeling. And he does just a great job of not only capturing horrific imagery, great emotions from his cast members, and just awesome shots in general, just beautiful imagery. He does it the score is phenomenal. The score in this movie is very good. There's a scene in particular where she's like shouting down the tunnel and it echoes throughout that entire thing. I thought that entire sequence was not only shot very well, but it was just done very beautifully. And he honestly does a great job of introducing the horror element, or essentially this man. He does a great job of introducing it to us, because what happens is it's like walking into the woods or anything like that, when you're on a long walk in the middle of nowhere, it always feels like you're being watched. It always feels like somebody's following you, and he does a great job of capturing that entire feeling throughout this entire film. It's just a really good movie. I'm stumbling over myself. I'm trying to get my words out here, but it's just a really great movie, and he does a phenomenal job. I'm actually, I wish he would make more movies, just because like his movies are so spaced out. Like Ex Machina came out in 2014, I think. Annihilation came out like 2017, 2018 or something like that, and now we get this movie here in 2022. Granted, if he's doing, the whole spacing out his movies thing to create art like he is, then hey, by all means do your thing. But I personally just wish I would get a little more from him, because he's a very good director. He could be one of my favorites. I just don't get enough material from him. All right, so as far as what I didn't like about the movie, now, I'm just going to say this straight out. I liked a lot of stuff about this movie. Alex Garland takes risk in this film, and some of them do pay off in a way that I appreciated, and others make me feel very uncomfortable. I didn't know how to feel. Like I said, I honestly probably have to watch this movie about 2 or 3 more times to really fully grasp how I feel about the risk that he did take in this movie. But I just personally, watching this movie, I knew from the jump, like, this is not a movie for everybody. Like, this is not something that, you can just turn on one night and the whole family can have a good time. This is not even remotely close for kids. This is not a movie for kids at all. But it's just, like, if you've seen Alex Garland movies before, that's why I say, personally, I feel like if you're going to watch this movie, if you want to at least know what you're getting into, watch an Alex Garland film. And then if you already know what A24's style is, then you're good. But But if you're just gonna jump in and watch this movie, then hey, by all means, go ahead, because it's a very good movie. It is, but I just know from watching it, like, everybody's not going to appreciate what's going on here on screen. Everybody's not going to be okay with what they see at the end. It's just going to be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. The end is really going to be the make or break for a lot of people in this movie. It's really going to be whether or not you enjoyed it or whether you didn't. Me personally, I knew what I was getting into. Like I said, I didn't guess it fully, but I know Alex Garland and I know A24's style, so I know that this is going to go for a completely left curve. And it's just going to be something that, honestly, I'm glad it left me with this kind of reaction where you don't necessarily know how people are going to react to it. I really can't give I really can't give a recommendation for this movie to everyone, because I know everybody's not going to enjoy this movie. I know a lot of people will. Honestly, if you were to ever recommend this movie to somebody, you either got to know that they're a very big lover of movies, or you're just trying to mess with them, and that's a good way to mess with them. If you want to mess with somebody, this is a very good way to watch them. This is a very good way to do that, because they're going to be very mad at you by the end of this movie. I mean, it's completely out of this world. He takes a lot of risks that essentially they paid off. They paid off for me. I'm not sure how everybody else reacted to it. My theater the entire time was silent. There was at least like a good maybe like 10, 13 people in this theater. Couldn't get a reaction out of anybody. I don't think anybody really knew how to feel once we got to the end of this thing, but I did feel a sense of enjoyment from people. It wasn't bad. Nobody was booing the movie, or nobody really boos movies, but you can definitely tell that people weren't saying, "Oh my God, that sucked." Like, we all just left quietly. I feel like that is the best way to describe the way that this movie will leave you. We all just left in silence. None of us really knew what to say. Even people that walked in with their groups of friends, they all walked out silent. It's like we don't know what to feel at all. But so that's my kind of like overall just feelings on the movie in general. It's like I enjoyed it a lot. Like, there wasn't necessarily anything in the movie I could say I didn't like. Well, I'll say this. Look, A24, I love your movie so much, but we really got to find out a way. Like, why do we have to show so much penis? Like, this guy had his dick out the entire movie, Rory Kinnear, and like I said, the character, he plays the character very phenomenally. He plays every single part in this movie phenomenally, but why do we have to show so much penis? I feel like maybe like 3 or 4 shots of penis is cool. I mean, I'm not necessarily like trying to look for that, but if you're gonna show it, just maybe like creep us out with maybe like 3 or 4 shots and be done. No, they want to show like 27 shots of a guy's meat, and it's just like, rah. So I mean, but I'm not going to criticize the movie for that, just because I mean it's creative. I'm gonna chalk that up to creative differences. Me and Alex Garland just had creative differences for this movie. So overall, guys, look, if you're looking for a movie that's really going to take a lot of risk, and it's going to go out of the box as far as the horror element goes, this is a movie for you. This is a movie that you should see. I will say this, as far as this is one of the best horror movies I've seen in a very long time. And well, not a very long time, but I've seen in a while. Scream just came out, and granted, that's 2 different types of horror for me, because Scream does the whole the movie verse, and it's got the jump scares and things like that, the very campy horror tone. This is dialing back to that Midsummer Hereditary tone, and I really enjoyed that. I really thought Alex Garland did a very good job of capturing the horrific tone. Granted, like I said, be warned. I will say, be warned if you're a casual moviegoer, if you're somebody who just wants to turn this on out of curiosity, be warned, because by the time you get to the end, you'll probably be either very upset at me, or you'll try to just figure out why I watched this movie in the first place. Granted, I loved it. I thought this movie was very good. I honestly have to see it a few more times just to really appreciate everything that went on or fully grasp the concept. Like I said, this is definitely one of those ending explained movies where you gotta you're gonna feel like you need to watch a video at the end to fully grasp what goes on here, because there's definitely a lot of different messages thrown at you throughout the movie. It's honestly the overlaying message of the movie is about traumatic experiences and grieving, the grief process itself. And I feel like that's where this male character comes from. But like I said, I can't really get into that because I feel like I'd be going into spoiler territory at that point, or theory territory. And I'm not really a theorist. I'm not really a big movie theory guy. I really like to either get it right or hear from somebody how it went down, just so I can have it flat out right. I don't necessarily want to be going into theories that long. But for all those reasons and so many more, guys, look, I'm gonna give Men a 4 out of 5 stars. Guys, thank you so much for watching my video today, guys. I really appreciate it. Look, A24's Men, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Are you planning on seeing it? Are you just going to skip it because I completely chickened you out of this whole movie? Look, if you really want to watch it, please do that. I just know for a fact, I know certain people that wouldn't enjoy this movie at all, or they'd be very upset at the fact that I had them watching this in the first place. But nonetheless, it is a phenomenal movie, guys. Just feel free to go check it out if you want to. This is your guy in the chair. More content coming to you soon.